Quality, not quantity. Traders say that's what to watch in the October jobs report. In today's cover story, signs America's food deserts are disappearing. Plus, entrepreneurs take a shot at fighting Ebola. And in Traders Unplugged, the guys have a light bulb moment. First Business starts now.
You're watching First Business. Financial news, analysis, and today's investment ideas.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Angela Miles. It's Friday, November 7th. In our first look, traders brace for the October jobs report due out this morning. It's expected 235,000 jobs are added to payrolls, and the unemployment rate remains unchanged at 5.9%. Yesterday, traders pushed the market higher following comments from the ECB that an aggressive stimulus could be on the way for the Eurozone. The Dow and the S&P closed at record levels for the second session in a row. Gold fell $5 and oil dropped 85 cents as OPEC cut its demand forecast. Bad Apple bug. Apple struggles to stop the spread of malware threatening devices in emerging markets. And a judge decides today if Detroit is ready to exit bankruptcy. Mark Sebastian of OptionPit.com joins us now on this Jobs Friday. Hello, Mark.
Good morning.
Will we see a Jobs Friday rally in the market?
You know, I think it depends on that number. Right now, the path of least resistance for the market is up. So if it's in line or better, I think the market keeps on moving. However, if we look at where the VIX is pricing relative to this all-time high that the market closed at yesterday, there's still a little pent-up fear in there. So I think even a mild miss could be very negative for the market.
All right, so oil continues to seep lower. What are some oil stock plays out there that are starting to look enticing in your trader mind?
You know, I think some of the oil services and MLPs are starting to look interesting. Two names I like, Halliburton, you know, touched below 50 briefly this week, and I think that's starting to look interesting. In the MLP space, one name I like is Linco, L-I-N-E, or LNCO. One is the K1, one is not. I think it's a real opportunity to pick up some of those stocks.
Well, we really like having you on the show. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Chuck Coppola is here with a Russian scandal that is unfolding. Chuck.
Angie, U.S. prosecutors are investigating a member of Vladimir Putin's inner circle on possible money laundering charges. The U.S. Justice Department and Attorney General in New York are looking into whether one of the Russian president's billionaire supporters illegally transferred funds linked to corrupt deals through the U.S. financial system. According to the Wall Street Journal, the focus centers on Gennady Timchenko, who operates Gunvor Group, a Geneva-based commodities firm that is suspected of buying Russian oil and selling it to a third party, a possible violation of the sale of state assets. The company says it has not been notified of any investigation.
In the U.S., the Postal Service is out with a new holiday tradition. Starting November 17th, the USPS will deliver packages 7 days a week. The Postal Service expects holiday deliveries will double this year to 470 million packages. Last Christmas, UPS and FedEx were criticized for failing to get gifts delivered on time as more Americans purchase gifts online.
JCPenney plans to lure holiday shoppers with an earlier Thanksgiving opening. The retailer says it'll open at 5 p.m. on Thanksgiving, 3 hours earlier than it opened last year on the holiday at 8 p.m., which at the time was the earliest it had opened ever on the holiday. One reason, its rivals open at 6 p.m. JCPenney hopes to get a head start this year. Competitors Kohl's, Sears, and Macy's confirm plans to open at 6.
Just ahead of the holidays, Costco is said to be shopping for credit card companies. According to Bloomberg News, American Express is the only credit card accepted at Costco, but now the retailer is soliciting bids to other credit card payment networks. Bloomberg reports American Express is among the bidders. The upside for Costco is the warehouse retailer has limited exposure to card breaches and so far has eluded hackers.
Holiday travel could soar this season. Industry trade group Airlines for America predicts 24.6 million people will fly during the Thanksgiving holiday, up 1.5% from last year. The group also says Ebola concerns have not affected travel plans. The travel surge comes as oil prices plunge to the lowest level in 4 years and airfares rise. Airlines are on track for the highest profits since 1999.
Call them disease disruptors. Facebook and Kickstarter are joining the fight to stop the Ebola outbreak. Facebook has added a button for users to click to make donations to charities. On Kickstarter, a company called Waka Waka has reached its goal to help Ebola workers. The company produces solar-powered lamps and is sending first aid kits with lights and power suppliers to healthcare workers in areas with little electricity.
That's basically a suicide mission, and it's a daily reality for a lot of health workers who work under circumstances that you would normally not send anybody into. You can't fight Ebola in the dark, and that's why we're sending lights to West Africa.
The Kickstarter campaign has collected more than $180,000. Waka Waka has sent 10,000 kits to West Africa.
Our cover story today looks at reclaiming parts of cities dubbed food deserts. In parts of Chicago, for example, you can travel miles and not see a single grocery just a few years ago. But that's changing now. There are signs that the recovery may be ready to speed up. Food deserts in Chicago, neighborhoods with nowhere for people to buy fresh produce and other groceries are in transition after Safeway-owned Dominick's systematically closed marginally profitable stores in a number of neighborhoods and closed the remaining 72 stores altogether. There was concern that food deserts would grow.
We do have to approach this as a business opportunity rather than as a charity, because as we know, charities are not sustainable.
Now, research shows food deserts are shrinking. In Chicago, chains such as Mariano's and Whole Foods have been encouraged to locate new stores strategically, and more may be on the way. Loyola University's Quinlan School of Business held a workshop to find ways grocers may create a customer base where fast food has been the only option. Could this, though, come around and bite McDonald's by encouraging people to shop for themselves and cook for themselves?
I think they can do both. I think people can shop for themselves and cook for themselves, and they can also stop by McDonald's.
Here, participants interested in business improving society and the bottom line shared ideas on food deserts. Stephen Casey turned a bus into a mobile produce market called Fresh Moves and learned about maintaining margins.
We needed to find other supply partners that would actually bring our price points down. We found that we needed to find a job training program, so instead of hiring labor straight up, we would hire labor that would be transitioned to another transitional job program that would actually offset some of our cost. And other concepts discussed here: hire locally.
Using people in the community as your employees and educating them to be ambassadors for you is really important, and what gives you kind of that sticking power in a community over time.
The CEO of Mariano's parent company says Mariano's routinely hires people who live within 2 to 5 miles from work. Mariano's business model also features food stations, prepared meals, and dining areas within the store, which some say brings competition to traditional fast food outlets.
The University of Minnesota is suing the 4 largest cell phone companies in the U.S. for patent infringement. The university claims AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, and Verizon are illegally using 4G technology developed by a professor. The professor contends his invention is improving 4G wireless networks. The university says we want to protect it and make sure that we get an appropriate royalty for having done that. The wireless carriers are not commenting on the lawsuit.
In market-moving earnings news, Disney shares fell more than 1% after the close last night on earnings that were in line with expectations, but the broadcasting side failed to hold much magic. Tech company Nvidia bounced 3% higher on a much better than expected profit. Gap reported weak sales, but that was overshadowed by the retailer's upbeat outlook. Shares jumped 3% after the bell. Genworth Financial reported a record loss for the third quarter, sending the stock down 38%. And while beef prices are eating into Wendy's profits, shares gained 2% on word that Wendy's is slimming down on locations.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will pay $6.8 billion to taxpayers. To date, Freddie and Fannie have returned $225 billion to taxpayers in a payback for the $188 billion bailout during the 2008 financial crisis. The mortgage fund agencies both posted profits for the third quarter. The CEO of Fannie Mae says the agencies have plans to lower down payments, a safe way to make home buying more affordable for Americans.
Rent is out of reach for Americans in several cities. Renters in New York, San Francisco, San Diego, Boston, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and Chicago are all spending more than 30% of their income on monthly rent. Jed Kolko, the chief economist at Trulia, attributes the trend to strong demand and limited supply.
The big question is, how long will it take some of this new apartment construction to get completed and come onto the market? I expect we'll see some relief for renters as the new apartment buildings that have been underway get finished and come onto the market.
Trulia reports rents rose 6.5% on average during the past year. In cities where rents are above the norm, landlords are charging 7.8% more. One example in Brooklyn, the average one-bedroom rents for $2,600 a month.
Starbucks is changing its stance on eggnog following a latte complaints. The Christmas season drink will be offered nationwide starting November 17th. Eggnog lovers use letters, phone calls, and social media to get their latte back. A Starbucks spokeswoman admits the coffee chain made a mistake. On the economic calendar for today, it's a non-farm payrolls, unemployment rate, hourly earnings, and the average work week, along with consumer credit numbers for September. On the earnings calendar, it's Chimerix, Extended Stay America, and Humana. Still to come, the stock set to move on China's busiest shopping day of the year. Plus, the election is over. Now the real financial debate begins. And after the break, why one money advisor says most Americans are overpaying on their taxes. Texas man is the first to get caught allegedly running a $4.5 million Bitcoin Ponzi scam. U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara says Trendon Shavers is charged with one count of securities fraud. He's accused of raising more than 760,000 Bitcoin investments through his firm, Bitcoin Savings and Trust. Shavers is accused of promising investors up to 7% in weekly interest by taking Bitcoins from new investors to give to earlier investors. In the end, 48 out of 100 investors lost money. Shavers offered no comment. Bill Mahler is here with how to handle capital gains legally.
Well, it is the fall harvest season. I don't mean just for farmers, investors too. Yeah, to be sure you're not paying any more than your fair share in taxes. What you should be doing is looking at what capital gains and losses you can harvest in the 2014 tax year. Dean Hedeker, he runs Hedeker Wealth Management. Dean, why is this important to do now, November, December?
Well, Bill, nobody wants to pay more than their fair share of taxes. And to avoid paying more than your fair share of taxes, what you need to do is you need to harvest your losses or harvest gains.
Are you saying that people typically pay more than they need to pay because they're not understanding how their losses and gains works?
They pay thousands, tens of thousands of dollars too much tax because they don't understand this.
So you say the first thing to do is to figure out what tax bracket you're in.
Absolutely, Bill. What you need to do is figure out if you're in the 15% or lower bracket or over 15% bracket. And that cutoff is approximately $75,000 of income for a married couple.
So there's a big difference in what you should do vis-a-vis gains or losses, depending on which of those brackets you're in.
Absolutely, Bill, because if you're in a lower bracket, you don't have to worry about any taxes on your securities transactions. You pay no tax at all, and it's a huge break that people frequently overlook.
So if you're in the higher tax bracket, losses, that can actually be your friend in a way.
Losses are a huge friend if you're in a higher tax bracket. Say, for example, you have $20,000 of capital gain income. This year, you want to offset that, and you want to sell some securities at a loss to avoid that tax on that $20,000 of gain.
Now, most people wouldn't know to do this. I'm sure CPAs, accountants, they understand this, but this is really part of wealth management. People have to understand that there's a tax side to everything.
Bill, there are so many wealth managers that don't understand taxes out there. They need to have integrated tax and financial planning advice. This is critical because otherwise you pay way too much tax.
And it's something you should do, I presume, every year.
You should do it throughout the year, and you absolutely need to do it at the end of the year. It is critical.
Dean Hedeker, thanks so much.
Thank you, Bill.
Coming up, it's a Traders Unplugged Friday. Today, the guys get ugly about Yahoo, plus why Alibaba is in for a sudden buying surge from single people. And now, the most famous odd couple from the financial world. Alan Nuckman and Scott Shellady are ready to rumble in Traders Unplugged. Good to go, guys. Round number one, election rush. Americans are so over political debates. So no debating on this one, guys. We're giving you each 20 seconds to state what the midterm elections mean for the market.
Not a lot. I think that ultimately we've got such a bad economy here, and that was proven out to be on Tuesday. The rest of the world's got bad economy with the PBOC and the Bank of Japan both easing. The ECB is going to do something as far as accommodation. So perversely enough, these markets are going to continue to rally because the economies around the world all stink.
Well, as far as the markets go, I don't think there's going to be much change, but looking at performance, we're up 5%.
Give us some details, Alan. Throw the numbers at us.
And 15% in the NASDAQ. So the anti-business policy has not been the actual case, but I think we can actually do better now that we're both pros business.
Round number two, light bulb moment. The utility sector is outpacing the market and has a higher PE ratio than the S&P 500. What gives, guys?
Well, I see that as a chase for yield. People are looking for some safety and trying to get yield, and I think that's gotten overdone. It's interesting that we've seen such a strong move, 11% in utility sector versus 5% in the S&P. So people are scrambling. I don't think that's really good long term. If they're looking for dividends, that could be kind of ugly when it does unwind.
How come nobody says this? When I'm looking for dividends and I want to buy a dividend yielding stock, the stock could go down in price too.
Right, but they just see the headline number of the dividend.
But I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense. I want 3% of my dividend, but I want to lose 30% of my stock value.
Exactly.
It's insane, but that's where people are getting pushed right now. Don't do it. You know what? That's another smokescreen out there. Stay safe. Don't follow that dividend thing. And I think that ultimately you're going to have those the earnings meet the price of the stock, or the yield's going to have to come down. Period.
Exactly.
Round three, Yippee Yahoo. The stock is up 25% from October lows. Is Yahoo a buy, sell, or a hold?
I knew this would hurt you. You have to decide, buy, sell, or hold.
If you're long it, sell it. If you don't have it on, don't get involved. I still think that this is a big storm in a teacup. People are looking for something to talk about. Leave it alone. Yes, they had something to do with Alibaba. I get that, and how that affects their valuation. I get that, but don't let your imagination be your own worst enemy. Stay away from it for the time being. Wait and see how this central bank stuff plays out, and then dive in.
I think you could participate by getting into the Nasdaq itself. If it does go up, you're going to have some Yahoo.
Have you ever said sell?
But I was about to say I don't have an answer. I would not get in Yahoo at these levels.
On to your bonus round question for today, and a sign that sadly you guys are getting older. Which former U.S. president had a grandson running for governor in the midterm elections?
This is like writing comedy for Scott, because he's got something good to say about a former president that I know the answer, but he's also been a victim of a lot of ridicule, only to be compared to our current president. So go ahead.
Who is it? Answer the question.
It's going to be Jimmy Carter.
That's what I was going to say, too. It's got to be, because he's 110 now. What is he? I mean, he's like a shelf life of like a million.
President Jimmy Carter's grandson, Jason Carter, ran as a Democrat for governor in Georgia. He lost to Governor Nathan Deal, who wins a second term. Congratulations. First Business continues right after this. TD Ameritrade joins us on this Friday. Hello and happy Friday to you, Joe.
Happy Friday and good morning, Angela. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I would love to get your take on Alibaba. It is Singles Day in China on 11/11. This is a huge shopping day for China. What would you do with a stock at the current level?
Well, at this level, it's got a lot of momentum to the upside. And what we're seeing in the options market that's really interesting to me is a lot of buyers of the December 120 calls. So this is a stock that last night closed just under 109. The momentum players continue to see it going higher. We're heading into the holiday season here in the U.S. right after Singles Day. So again, what you're hoping for is that this shopping momentum continues. We've had the price of gasoline come down significantly over the last few weeks. That's money in consumers' pockets. So I think those who are buying that 120 call, hoping to see this continue right through the holiday season, Angie.
But I know how you traders can be about these big events, a big buying spree into the event on the stock and then a selling on the news. Any chances this is going to happen here, Joe?
Well, there's always that chance, Angie, but the next event is only 2 weeks away. So I think there may be a little bit of a reluctance to really punish the stock unless, of course, Singles Day delivers a disappointment.
Hey, and a quick mention on the jobs report coming out this morning. Is the options market bullish ahead of that report?
Well, I think overall what we've seen in the market for today's report is that people are expecting, you know, again, the momentum of the stock market. We wanted to see the SPX, the S&P 500 above 1920. It did so convincingly last night. Now with that, I think what the traders are going to be looking for in the report is not only the number of jobs created, as we always do, but the quality of jobs created. In the Fed's last meeting, they actually talked about this. So you want to see the jobs created, true careers, business services, manufacturing, construction, good quality jobs that, as I say, it's not a jobs report. You want to see it be a careers report, and then I think it will be considered a great success.
Thank you, Joe.
Always a pleasure, Angie.
Well, it's closing time for First Biz. Coming up next week, a salute to Marines putting a manufacturing company into high gear. Join us on Monday. From all of us at First Business, have a wonderful and restful weekend.